snow removal costs forced council to look at extreme measures to balance the books. A frightening scare for passengers on a Wasaya Airlines flight. And the Supreme Court rejects the Harper government's Senate reform plan.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. City snowplows were forced into action again today.
Absolutely, and this never-ending winter is at least partly to blame for a grim budget adjustment which City Council is going to receive on Monday night. Nearly $13 million in overruns will be presented, including a $6.8 million deficit in last year's budget. City staff are anticipating another $5.8 million shortfall this year, and that could mean an additional tax hike for city ratepayers. Back-to-back harsh winters are mainly to blame for the overruns, but fuel prices, legal fees, and insurance costs have also contributed. The city will dip into reserve funds to cover last year's deficit. City Manager Tim Camisso will also present some other options, which include cutting about $1.5 million out of the 2014 budget.
We're recommending about $2.5 million in restraint measures, things that we just won't do this year, not spend money, look at other revenues. And we're also bringing, it's an option for council, whether they'll go for it or not, that's really up to them, of a 1%, further 1% tax increase.
Mayor Keith Hobbs says he'd like to use reserve funds to cover the expected $5.8 million budget shortfall for this year. Adding an extra 1% to the tax levy isn't a road he wants to go down.
Go that way. We've fought hard to keep the budget down, and we just have to look internally, I think, too, and tighten departments. I know department managers don't want to hear that. We're squeezing them already as best we can.
The city manager says he'll speak with outside boards and agencies, including police, about budget restraints.
Well, today's heavy snowfall left thousands of residents around Thunder Bay area without any power. The wet snow pulled numerous tree branches down onto power lines, but fortunately, the flooding situation still doesn't look too bad. Mike Albanese has more.
Repair crews with Thunder Bay Hydro and Hydro One crews have been working diligently, all trying to keep up with all the down power lines. And the situation got worse after the wet snow caused this transport to careen off Highway 102, taking down a hydro pole with it. That was the scenario around Mud Lake Road. On top of the accident, tree branches that were being weighed down by the blankets of snow were affecting power lines as well, leaving 5,800 Hydro One customers without power and up to 3,200 homes within city limits powerless. Thunder Bay Hydro spokesperson Eileen Diaz says until the snow lets up, hydro crews will be covering their vast stretches of cable multiple times.
Heavy snowfall has created a multiple number of power outages, particularly in the rural areas of Thunder Bay, and our crews have been really hampered by the continuing snow and the fact that sometimes you'll get some area fixed up and then you drive away and more trees fall down onto the lines.
All of the snow and rain that fell over the past 24 hours is no cause for panic, though, according to Bill Bartley of the Lakehead Region Conservation Authority. He says the cool temperatures at night and the floodway are protecting the city from floods like those in southern Ontario.
With the cooler nights, it's certainly helping to go down, and so we're hoping that it'll be a nice, gentle melt, and that the river systems and that can handle it. It's going to be localized flooding in low-lying areas and things, and maybe a little bit over the banks of the river, but not a great deal.
Hydro One estimates their customers may be without power overnight, while Thunder Bay Hydro has no estimate but has crews at full strength trying to restore power. Mike Albanese, TBT News.
Well, the power outages also resulted in an unexpected day off for students at a Northside Catholic elementary school, and all of Thunder Bay's rural schools were closed today as well as a result of this latest winter storm. Plenty of students were dropped off at the doors of Holy Cross School Friday morning, only to be turned around and sent back home. Prior to the commencement of the school day, it was discovered that, like many homes in the area, the building was without power. Catholic Board Superintendent Omer Belisle estimates that up to 100 of the school's 350 students had arrived at the facility before the problem was discovered and the decision to close the school for the day was made. He says despite the short notice, most parents took the news in stride.
Like I said, we were outside addressing parents as they arrived at the school, and they fully understand. I mean, when you don't have heat, you don't have lighting or backup lighting or power or phone lines, I mean, there's no way to ensure that staff and students are going to be safe. So people were very understanding.
The power had yet to be restored as of Friday afternoon. Meanwhile, the city's rural schools were closed as well due to poor conditions on some area highways. For the Lakehead District School Board, it's the 6th closure at rural schools this academic year, double the number of snow days experienced last year. Director of Education Kathy Semenuk says teachers will ensure those students don't fall behind their urban counterparts.
For some teachers it might be, and depending on the grade, whether there's more homework or not, there are a variety of ways that they can do that. But really teachers are skilled at integrating the expectations and the curriculum into their lesson plans, so that it'll require some extra planning on their behalf.
Semenuk adds all teachers from the closed schools are still in class today at an alternate facility.
A major fright for passengers on a Wasaya Airlines flight yesterday. It happened on a plane en route from Sachiko Lake to Sioux Lookout. According to one of the passengers on board, the Beechcraft 1900 had just taken off and was about 500 feet in the air when the plane's door opened. This video was taken by the passenger during the incident. He says a loud whistling sound could be heard coming from the door right from takeoff. And when a co-pilot reached back to check the door, it flew open about 6 inches. The crew then turned the plane around and made an emergency landing in Sachiko Lake. A replacement plane was then sent to pick up the passengers, and they departed for Sioux Lookout about 3 hours later. The man describes many of the 9 passengers on board as being scared for their lives. But he says there was no explanation given to the people by the crew or Wasaya officials. And there's also been no follow-up from the airline to check on their condition. In a release from Wasaya late this afternoon, company president Tom Morris confirms the incident did take place. He says one passenger complained of an earache in the aftermath, but the rest were uninjured. The Transportation Safety Board is investigating.
Well, the rhetoric is heating up with the possibility of a spring provincial election looming. Last night at a NOMA meeting in Fort Francis, Premier Kathleen Wynne issued a challenge to leaders of both the NDP and PC parties. Dennis Ward was there. He has more on the Premier's visit and the annual Bear Pit session.
Premier Kathleen Wynne told delegates at the NOMA annual meeting she wants her 2014 budget to pass, but she realizes that might not happen. The minority Liberal government needs the support of at least one other party, and she's hoping to get it.
But if that isn't the case, then we will be in an election situation. And during that election, I'm going to call on, and I call on them today, on opposition leaders to join me and come to the north and discuss these issues at a Northern Leaders debate. I will be here. I will come to the north. I will be here.
It didn't take long for the other party leaders to respond. NDP leader Andrea Horwath says she's happy to debate Kathleen Wynne and Tim Hudak on northern issues anywhere in the north, anytime. PC leader Tim Hudak says why wait for an election? He will be in Northern Ontario in a couple of weeks, and he hopes to see Wynne and Horwath there. This isn't the first time a leaders' debate in the North has been proposed. In 2011, it was then Premier Dalton McGuinty who declined the invitation and chose not to take part in a debate with Hudak and Horwath in Thunder Bay. There was another proposal at the conference, this one from Transportation and Infrastructure Minister Glenn Murray. He says he was very unhappy with the winter maintenance of highways in the region this year. He wants municipalities to think about taking on the job.
We would fund municipalities to actually extend and provide the highway coverage. We would pay for the trucks, we would take all the money, we would provide the staff. They would become either through some shared services model through NOMA or directly employees of those municipalities, because many of you have public works yards, you have mechanics, you have the facilities to do it, and you do a lot of snow removal and winter maintenance.
Murray maintains this would not be downloading in any way and says it will be up to municipalities if they want the new role. There was also a promise at the conference from Mines Minister Michael Gravel.
You know that we've been very clear about making a very significant investment from the province in terms of the infrastructure needs of the Ring of Fire. What you can expect is more on that soon, very soon.
That announcement is expected to come on Monday. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
The recent flurry of child pornography arrests continues. Thunder Bay police say a 41-year-old city man has been charged following the receipt of another tip from the National Child Exploitation Coordination Center. That tip led to the search of an East Arthur Street residence and the seizure of computer equipment. Jeffrey Arden Fillmore is facing charges of possession of child pornography and distribution of child pornography. Fillmore will be in court on the charges next month.
Well, the new Thunder Bay Courthouse celebrated another milestone today with the first swearing-in ceremony held for a Thunder Bay police constable. Justice Dino DiGiuseppe presided over the ceremony for Constable Michael Belosky. Police Chief J.P. Levesque authorized the swearing-in of the new cadet. Belosky says he's been looking forward to this day for a long time and feels he can best help people through good police work.
It feels amazing. It's a great day. Little rough start with the snowstorm. That wasn't really expected, but we made it here, and it's just a great feeling to finally, after all the hard work that I put in, to make it to this point. I'm no more nervous than anyone could reasonably expect to be starting a new career. There'll always be that learning curve right at the beginning, but hopefully I get over that quickly and proceed well.
He's been assigned to Sergeant Lewis in the training section, getting caught up on policies and procedures. He'd be assigned to a parent constable or coach officer, and I know who he's assigned to, and that officer will do well by him. I know that. I have every faith in him, and he'll get right back at it.
The Anishinaabe-Aski Police Service has also officially welcomed their latest recruits. 6 new officers were sworn in last week to serve in Nan communities around the remote north.
A Thunder Bay man had the distinct honor of receiving the Star of Courage at a ceremony in Ottawa yesterday. Daniel Morrison rescued a co-worker who was being attacked by a black bear in a remote location near Wabakan Lake in 2011. He fought off the bear only using a hunting knife and tended to the victim's wounds until help arrived 2 hours later. Governor General David Johnston presented the decoration that recognizes acts of courage in circumstances of great peril. Morrison attended the ceremony with Laura Darby, the co-worker whose life he did save. He says it's hard to put into words what it means to receive the Star of Courage.
And not really do it for recognition, but I do appreciate the award, and I appreciate all the people that did great things to deserve awards, and it just shows sort of our country that everybody does some great things on every day of the year, and not everyone gets awards for it, but it's good to know that we help each other out when we need it.
Morrison says he worked off adrenaline and wanted to do whatever he could to make sure everyone involved was out of harm's way.
Well, lots of sorebacks around the city in northwestern Ontario again today. Fiona, the good news is the weekend's upon us. Does that mean that the worst is over in terms of the storm?
Yes, I think the worst is definitely over in terms of this storm. Who knows about other ones that may still pop up. It seems every time we think we've gotten rid of one, another one shows up again. And today we were hit pretty hard across northwestern Ontario, all the way to the Manitoba border, and we are just now in the last few hours of it, and we've just got this little bit left to get rid of, and it seems to be collapsing on itself. So we only topped out with a high of 2 with light snow throughout the day. The problem also was that the winds were kicking up from the east-northeast, at times up to 46 kilometers per hour. Currently in the city, we are at our daytime high. To the west, we've got clouds in Fort Frances, but slightly warmer temperatures, so maybe not so bad to see that little bit of cloud cover. Just a few clouds up towards Red Lake. Greenstone is still under a fair amount of snow cover, and Sault Ste. Marie mostly cloudy at this time. They're currently at 6 Celsius. Now tonight, we are going to drop down to the freezing mark, and that snow is going to taper off. Then we're looking at mainly cloudy skies. The winds will continue to be blowing from the northeast, but they are expected to taper off somewhat overnight down to about 24 kilometers per hour. And that's going to leave us with fairly dry conditions throughout the weekend. Unfortunately, as we head into next week, well, we're going to be kind of blocked into this pattern of cool, wet air. So don't expect temperatures to rebound for very long. We're going to be below freezing into next week, and probably in for more rain, which is not good news for those watching out for the flood levels. But I'll have more details on exactly what kind of reprieve we'll have for the weekend. It's later on in the news hour.
I guess we can't put those winter coats away just yet, Fiona.
No, and definitely keep the galoshes handy.
Well, stay with us when we return. Another major setback for the Harper government coming from the Supreme Court. We'll have the details after the break.
Decision that the vast majority of Canadians will be very disappointed with, but obviously we will respect that decision.
Well, a major setback for Stephen Harper today.
In a unanimous decision, the Supreme Court of Canada says Senate reform cannot be done unilaterally. It can only be achieved with the consent of the provinces. Julie Van Dusen has the story.
The Supreme Court concludes that fixed terms and the election of senators needs the approval of 7 provinces, representing 50% of the population. Abolishing the upper chamber would need the consent of all provinces. Stephen Harper had asked the court if he could make the changes on his own, sidestepping the Constitution. The answer? No. Harper says it means Canadians are stuck with the status quo for the time being.
I think it's a decision that I'm disappointed with, but I think it's a decision that the vast majority of Canadians will be very disappointed with, but obviously we will respect that decision.
Harper was one of the founding members of the Reform Party, which pushed for a Triple E Senate, elected, effective, and equally representative. Letters one farmer famously cut in a field. That goal has taken a hit. The court says the notion of elected senators could stymie the House of Commons. Liberal MP Stéphane Dion says it's a good thing the court put the brakes on it.
Imagine two elected chambers paralyzing each other.
NDP leader Tom Mulcair says he will continue to fight for abolition, and he says it's Harper's fault that any reform is back to square one.
Mr. Harper has known for years that it required a constitutional amendment for any of these major changes. He wanted to show some form of action after twiddling his thumbs for nearly a decade.
The Taxpayers Federation says the government should hold a referendum to abolish the Senate.
We're calling on Prime Minister Harper to put this question to Canadians in a national referendum at the 2015 election. Senate is a $92 million a year embarrassment to all Canadians.
But the government is saying no to a referendum.
We have no plans to open the Constitution.
This Supreme Court decision has given Stephen Harper the ability to shelve Senate reform. He can say it's the court's fault and dodge any blame from voters and his own party. Julie Van Dusen, CBC News, Ottawa.
The federal government has announced a major about-face in its proposed overhaul of election rules. A series of new amendments will remove some of the contentious aspects of the Fair Elections Act. Pierre Poilievre, the Minister of Democratic Reform, revealed the proposed changes at a news conference today.
We will support an amendment to help people whose address is not on their ID. In the spirit of
Poilievre says his government is prepared to remove the requirement for all voters to show residency identification in the next election. Now, citizens will be able to sign an oath attesting to their local residence, but they still need to provide at least some proof of personal ID.
Ottawa says it's sending a message to businesses with suspension on new temporary foreign workers in the fast food sector. Employment Minister Jason Kenney says companies need to raise wages and increase training rather than hire workers from abroad. Kenney was responding today to the latest revelations about allegations of abuse in the temporary foreign workers program. Tom Perry reports.
Faced with increasing pressure on temporary foreign workers, Employment Minister Jason Kenney is sounding a hard line.
If and when we see cases of apparent abuse, we are taking action.
Kenney put a moratorium on temporary foreign workers in the fast food sector last night. It came as CBC News released a recording of the CEO of McDonald's Canada speaking to franchise owners in a conference call, discussing the company's move to freeze its own use of foreign workers because of allegations they were being hired over Canadians.
This has been an attack on our brand. This has been an attack on our system. This is an attack on our people. It's bullshit, okay? I used those words when I described my conversation with the minister last week. He gets it.
Despite the CEO's claim that Kenney gets it, the minister today denied any suggestion he's on side with McDonald's.
I think that corporation understood very well how serious we were, that we were prepared to freeze that corporation's access to the program. And they therefore decided to take action unilaterally.
Kenney took aim at employers, saying they should raise wages and increase training for Canadians rather than recruiting workers from abroad. But NDP leader Tom Mulcair says the government needs to do more.
That's why we're bringing a motion before Parliament next Tuesday to shut down the use of the temporary foreign worker program in the case of restaurants and hotels. These are jobs that can be occupied by the 1.2 million Canadians who are without work right now.
Jason Kenney says the government has no plans yet to expand its moratorium beyond the fast food sector, but is continuing to monitor the situation. As for McDonald's, the company issued a statement today saying it recognizes it has work to do when it comes to its use of temporary foreign workers, but the company insists it hires Canadians first. Tom Perry, CBC News, Ottawa.
Family, friends, and colleagues marked the passing of Herb Gray at an Ottawa synagogue today. Gray was Canada's first Jewish federal cabinet minister, serving in several portfolios, and he was an MP from Windsor, Ontario for 4 decades. Among those speaking were Paul Martin, whose father was a top Liberal from Windsor, and another party colleague from the city, Dwight Duncan. Herb Gray capped his career as Deputy Prime Minister. He died Monday at 82.
The federal government has posted its biggest monthly budget surplus since the recession. The Finance Department says it took in $5.1 billion more than it spent in February. That puts the government in a position to easily beat its target deficit for the year.
Well, have you ever searched your own name online? When an Ontario woman did, she was shocked by the results. Court documents detailing her domestic assault trial were posted at the top of the search engine. As Amanda Margerson tells us, removing them comes at a price.
A new iPad, but the first search, a shock of old memories.
Accessed my name, searching for Helen Caplet.
The results showed social media profiles and this, court documents detailing a messy domestic assault case.
Everything is listed.
The legal judgment was posted here, a website with a Canadian look, but with an IP address in Romania.
I'm angry and stressed out, and it's like a violation of my privacies.
Other Canadians have also seen their judicial laundry aired here, and like Caplet, they've asked the website creator to remove their information.
They were asking for 19 euros and please pay PayPal.
She calls it extortion and refuses to pay. The man behind the website, who may or may not be in Romania, preferred to stay in the cyber shadows, but he did return our emails. He says the money's an administrative fee. The website's mission, he says, is not to shame people, and these documents are not confidential, because if they would be, they wouldn't have been published by all the federal and provincial courts on their websites. And that's the catch. Court documents are public in Canada. Websites like this do publicly post court documents from the provincial all the way to the Supreme Court. But there's one big difference. You can't find them on Google.
We prevent Google from indexing or searching our site.
Colin Lachance is almost certain the Romanian website's taking Canadian judgments from his database, and he says that's not right.
It becomes something that's troubling now when we think about how easy it is to disseminate private information.
And for Helen Caplet, getting rid of the information now headlining her cyber profile is not going to be easy. Both police and a lawyer say there's not a lot they can do. Amanda Margerson, CBC News, Toronto.
A new trend is taking shape that helps people who are losing their hair, covering the bald spots with a scalp tattoo. As Stephanie Matthias tells us, this solution isn't without risks.
It's just a tiny little dot that's going to go right in the scar.
The tool might look like it belongs in a tattoo parlor, but Linda McLean is a registered nurse. Today, she's fixing a hair transplant scar.
You okay there, Adam?
Adam McInerney had a hair transplant nearly 20 years ago.
Very soon afterwards, I just realized it wasn't the way I wanted to go.
Now he shaves his head and people notice his scar.
They did say, hey, how did you get that scar? When people did bring it up, I felt so ashamed and embarrassed. It would just really bother me.
That's why he's trying scalp micropigmentation, basically a scalp tattoo to mask it. It's not as deep as a tattoo, so it will only last a couple years and cost $1,000. And the initial results? The dots of ink are tough to see.
Yeah, they're so tiny. They're very tiny,
that's
and
the
they
point,
increase.
right?
Yes,
So the hair follicles.
but they increase in diameter in the next couple of days.
Dr. Robert Jones of McLean learned about the technique in Italy.
I've had it actually done myself.
Now I have to check out your hair.
What you're doing is just making a thinner head of hair look a little bit thicker.
He's tattooed bigger areas, creating a nearly permanent 5 o'clock shadow, but the results can be unpredictable.
The ink looks fine when they leave, and then a day or so later it'll actually bleed under the skin.
This dermatologist has other concerns.
This woman, she may have hair loss simply from a thyroid abnormality or from low iron. And I think if you just go ahead and micropigment, you may be missing a serious disease.
McInerney says he's heard it all.
There's risks in any time you do something that's, man-made.
But for him, the benefits outweigh any risks.
I made one bad decision when I was 20. And it's been a journey to try and correct that.
Stephanie Matisse, CBC News, Toronto.
It's very interesting.
It is.
Yeah. Let's look at the day's markets activity now. Toronto saw the TSX drop 20 points to 14,533. The Dow Jones plunged 140 points to 16,361. And the Nasdaq recorded a 72-point decline, closing at 4075. The Canadian dollar was down slightly to 90.61 cents US. Gold was up $10 to $1,300 an ounce. And oil sits at $1 after a drop of over $1 a barrel. Well, Randy, of course, the NHL playoffs roll on. It's looking like we could have a pretty interesting series shaping up in round 2, Boston-Montreal, assuming Boston can hold serve here against Detroit.
And I think if we do see that series, Montreal, you guys have a lot tougher time with the Bruins than you did the
Played
Lightning.
well against them this season.
Boston hits, Tampa Bay can't. Or didn't. Or don't. Anyway, we got a good one coming up tonight on CKPR Thunder Bay at 8 o'clock. It's St. Louis and Chicago. They'll lock up in Game 5 of their first round Stanley Cup playoff series. The home team, by the way, has won every game so far in that series. Steve Mason returns in goal for the Flyers as they look to even their series with the Rangers at 2. And Anaheim takes on Dallas. That one squared at 2. Last night in Detroit, Henrik Zetterberg returned from injury, and Nicholas Kronwall would open the scoring. Only hours after becoming a dad, Pavel Datsyuk assisted. He welcomed a daughter into the world the previous day. Those two dads combined again to make it 2-zip, but Boston rallied with a pair of goals to force overtime. And then it's Dougie Hamilton supplying the shot, and Jerome Iginla with the redirect as the Bruins end up winning it. You see it again there. 3-2 the final. They grab a 3-1 series lead. Game 4 between Colorado and Minnesota. The Wild jump out to a 2-0 lead. Then they buckle down defensively, allowing only 12 shots. Darcy Kemper solid when he had to be. This series is tied at 2 after the Wild double up the Avalanche. The final was 2-1. And facing elimination, the LA Kings were focused on forcing a Game 5. They would get 2 goals from Justin Williams and Nurian Gaborik as the Kings were all over the Sharks 6-3, but they still trail that series 3-1. Things getting a little testy there. Sort of like Montreal and Boston in round 2, if that happens. Thunder Bay athletes excel in a number of different sports, from hockey to skiing to wrestling, you name it. We likely have someone who's competed at a remarkably high level. You can add the growing sport of floorball to that list. Ryan Benazzo brings us the story of a local teen who's off to Poland to compete for Team Canada at the upcoming World Floorball Championships, and the coach who first noticed her potential.
If you're not familiar with the game of floorball, you're not alone. St. Ignatius student Caitlin Burton was recently named to the under-19 women's national team. And even some of her friends and family members weren't quite sure at first what exactly that meant.
The initial reaction is, what's floorball? And then it kind of moves on to, oh, how did this happen? And then it just all happened so fast that it's really a shock to most people.
Even she was taken aback when she first got the call. After all, the 15-year-old defender only just picked up the game, which is a Scandinavian version of indoor floor hockey, this past September. Now she's off to Poland to play in next week's World Championships. Now you may be asking, how did someone with such limited experience make Team Canada? Floorball Thunder Bay's Stephanie Koo is an assistant coach with the under-19 squad. She also plays for Canada's senior national team. Koo says with the former Thunder Bay Queens hockey player lacks in experience, she makes up in intangibles.
She's really smart and she's super coachable. She, you tell her what to do and she gets down on the court and she does it. She's super confident and, she's kind of more intimidating to play against because she is a tall girl.
Floorball is still a grassroots game here in northwestern Ontario, but continues to grow both internationally and domestically. Even here in Thunder Bay, it's gaining traction in school gym classes. It helps that floorball closely resembles another sport we as Canadians are intimately familiar with.
We got a lot of hockey players in Thunder Bay, so it's a lot of hockey-based floorball here, which is good. Like, there's lots of really good players in Thunder Bay.
Floorball has been tagged as a demonstration sport at the 2020 Summer Olympics, which is often the first step toward consideration as an official medal sport. But while Burton doesn't know whether an Olympic berth is in her future, she does know that she'll be forever grateful to Koo for introducing her to the sport she loves.
I wouldn't know anything if it wasn't for her, so she's just done so much for me. And I don't know if I'll be able to pay that back to her.
A strong showing in Poland would likely be a good start. Ryan Benazzo, TBT Sports.
The Toronto Raptors will try for the upper hand in their first-round NBA playoff series with the Nets in Brooklyn. Tonight, that best-of-7 affair, tied at 1. Mark Burley looks to improve to 5-0 tonight as the Jays open up a 3-game series at home with the Boston Red Sox. Last night, Jays wrapped up their series with Baltimore. In the second, they go in front of former Houston Astro Bud Norris. Dio Navarro slams his first homer as a Blue Jay to right, and that would make it A 1-0 for the good guys. Later in that inning, Colby Rasmus golfs a low fastball from Norris. This one vaulted well over the right field wall for his 4th round tripper of the year. 3-0 Toronto. The Orioles get to Drew Hutchison in the 5th. Jonathan Scope nails a pitch, and it's a frozen rope to the seats and left for his 2nd long ball to make it 3-1. For only the 2nd time in his career, Chris Davis gets a hit off Brett Cecil as he signals to center. That catches David Lowe and Nick Markakis. The Orioles grab the lead. They add to it later in the 7th. Adam, don't call me Pac-Man Jones. One hops a double off the wall in center. Nelson Cruz. Yeah, he's got speed. He sort of lumbers in there. The Orioles take the rubber match 11-4. Thunder Bay's Gino Sonego was off to Boucherville, Quebec for the Canadian Wheelchair Curling Championships. They will open Monday night. He'll play Newfoundland's Joanne McDonald in his opener. And the Vancouver Whitecaps have scored only once in their last 3 road games. They visit unbeaten Salt Lake City this weekend.
It's easy as just saying, all right, we'll change it up and we'll play good away from home. You've got to go out. Everybody finds it tough on the road, I think. And when you're going to places like we're going in the last 2 away games, LA, 2 times MLS champions the last 3 years, Salt Lake, fantastic team, always there and thereabouts come playoff time. So it's they're tough places to go, so it's not just as easy to go and decide you'll score 2 or 3 goals. It's about going with your game plan, being set up to hopefully stop them scoring, and hopefully if we get the chances we can take them.
They'll have their fans there supporting them, and I think just the travel a little bit in this league, it's a long distance sometimes. I don't think Salt Lake is, but they have the altitude, and so we have to adapt to that. It's just little things here and there, a lot of mental stuff, and we need to go in with the right mindset.
And remember the name Cameron De Silva, the 11-year-old boy from Bowmanville, Ontario, is viewed as a future soccer star. He's lighting it up at Toronto FC's Soccer Academy. Rob Leth has more.
When you watch Cameron De Silva work his magic with the ball, it's hard to believe he's only 11 years old.
Well, I think I've done like a 120 or something.
Skills he has been developing his entire life.
I first started playing soccer when I was 1. My parents signed me up for House League when I was 3.
The support from mom and dad now beginning to pay off.
I think all along we've known that each year as he improved, that he had a lot of potential to become great.
After first attending tryouts last October for the Toronto FC Academy, the Bowmanville boy has become the only player from Durham Region in his age group to make the squad.
Well, I was nervous because I was happy and it was really hard. And then I was happy because I'm trying out for a professional team.
As far as role models go, Cameron has a perfect one in Dwayne DiRosario. As it turns out, soccer talent runs in the family.
My cousin Dwayne DiRosario plays for TFC in Canada. He's a really good soccer player because he has lots of skill and he scores a lot of cool goals.
While some kids lose interest in sports because of outside pressures from parents and coaches, that doesn't appear to be an issue with Cameron, who literally has soccer on his mind around the clock.
Well, I think about it for maybe the whole entire day, maybe sometimes when I am sleeping. I usually dream about it.
One kid who isn't afraid to dream big. Rob Leth, Global News.
And Canada will take on the Czech Republic tomorrow in the semis of the World Under-18 Men's Hockey Championships in Finland. We are the defending champs. Now check this out.
What's up, buddy? It's all yours.
That might be the happiest hockey fan next to Ryan after his Habs swept Tampa Bay. This little guy asked Grand Rapids Griffins player Jordan Tutu for a high five. What he got is the stuff of hockey dreams. Tutu stick for keeps. And that smile says it all.
I've seen that. I've heard that very sound come out of you at Thunderwolves games as well. When a player's pass.
You could tell that kid's not a Leafs fan. He wouldn't be smiling, that's for sure.
All right. Well, if you're wondering where Barry is, he's at home in his kitchen making dinner and making popcorn to get ready for tonight's Blackhawks game. But that's not the only kitchen nightmare we've got going on. With more, here's Teletalk.
Tonight, the drama is in the kitchen, on the streets, and in the home on Global Thunder Bay. At 8 on Kitchen Nightmares, Gordon Ramsay tries to save an Italian restaurant in Colorado. Then at 9 on Hawaii Five-0, a terrorist cell of radicalized students may be planning an attack. And at 10 on Kitchen Nightmares, Gordon continues his battle with the owner of Manja. Over on CKPR Thunder Bay, we're hitting the ice in a battle for Lord Stanley's Cup. At 8, the playoffs continue as the Blackhawks head to St. Louis to take on the Blues in Game 5. And at 10:30, it's the National, followed by the TBT News Late Edition at 11:30. Teletalk is brought to you by Points, the traffic ticket specialists.
Well, it's kind of a cool day for just about everybody across the country.
Yeah, apparently misery does love company, and everybody seems to be very confused by this spring. We're not the only ones. About a week ago, I heard a Canada goose fly over my head, and I swear it sounded really ticked off about the situation, so we're not the only ones. Today, we hit a glorious high of 2 Celsius with some light snow, and that's with winds at times gusting up to 46 kilometers per hour. But we're not alone in our misery. Now, yes, on the West Coast, things are not looking too bad, double digits. Vancouver at 12, under mostly cloudy skies, or sorry, partly cloudy skies, mostly cloudy in Prince George at 11. But then the temperatures take a bit of a dip. We're well below seasonal for both Edmonton and Calgary under cloudy skies, as is Saskatoon. They're just a mere 2 Celsius with some showers. Regina has had a couple of days of nice warm temperatures, but that's coming to a screeching halt. By tomorrow, they're going to be back into single-digit highs. And Winnipeg, currently at 7 under clouds. That's going to be decreasing, and folks there, I'm sure, are looking forward to a little bit of sunshine as they head into the weekend. Speaking of a lack of sunshine, Toronto's had rain for most of the afternoon. They're currently at 7 Celsius. Ottawa at 11 Celsius under cloudy skies at this hour. The showers are expected to begin tonight and continue into the weekend, making things rather dull and damp for those folks. Quebec City matching those temperatures under mainly cloudy conditions. And on the East Coast, we have clouds in Fredericton at 7, a chilly and mostly cloudy day in Charlottetown, as is Halifax at 2 under a rain-snow mix. And St. John's on the freezing mark has been experiencing freezing drizzle for the last few hours. Now today, those lows to the south of us brought a whole lot of precipitation across the Great Lakes. That's going to move out tonight, tomorrow, leaving us basically with nothing. Nothing is actually not a bad thing considering what we've got coming our way, because as I said earlier in the newscast, next week is looking pretty damp. As we build into Sunday, Sunday's not looking too bad, but you can see there's a whole lot of precipitation to the south and to the west, and that's what's heading our way for the beginning of next week. Sorry, don't have any better news than that. Now tonight, we've got temperatures dropping below the freezing mark, good 5 degrees below normal for the most part to the west under cloudy skies. Eastward, Greenstone's looking at some snow at -8, and Sault Ste. Marie hovering around the freezing mark. They're expecting to see the snow start tomorrow. Everywhere else, just a fair amount of cloud cover, but warm up slightly, 5 Celsius to the east, and ranging from about 4 in Armstrong, yes, and 2 in Big Trout Lake, all the way up to 9 Celsius in Fort Frances with a little bit of sunshine. At this hour, we're at 2, and it's cloudy, it's wet, it's unpleasant for a Friday night. So good excuse to stay home and watch the Stanley Cup. Tonight we're looking at a low of 0. All that snow and rain should be tapering off. Then it'll be cloudy and winds will start to taper off as well. Tomorrow, starting off first thing, mostly cloudy at about 1. By noon we're at 2. By 4 we're at 3. Yippee! Boy, talk about a warm up. But at least it is dry, which is good news. That is our high for the day. Sunday, a little bit more sunshine and a little bit more heat. 6 is going to be our high. By Monday, we're looking at some sunny skies and 6. Tuesday, variable cloud during the day, but at night, that's when the showers could be moving in. And Wednesday, more cloud and a high of 10. So we're going to keep an eye on what's going to be developing next week, but don't expect a whole lot of heat for the next little while. We've got a ways to go before we finally get back into seasonal values. Have a great weekend.
Well, the annual Gala Ball fundraiser in support of TBSO's youth and education programs will take place next weekend. Ashley Camuzzi has all the details on that event and more in tonight's edition of Front Row Center.
Although we have some relief in sight weather-wise, if Fiona's forecast just bumped you out a little bit, well, I got some great events coming up, and best of all, they're all indoors. First off, next weekend, we all know it's the Folklore Festival, but it's also the annual Gala Ball fundraiser in support of TBSO's youth and education programs. Now, it's guaranteed to be a night of great food, entertainment, plus there'll be a silent auction and prizes. That's happening Saturday, May 3rd from 6 till 10 p.m. at the Valhalla Inn. Call 474-2284 and hurry up because the deadline to get your tickets is April 30th. Also next week, the Black Pirates Pub is celebrating 6 years in business, and they're doing it with 4 days of great entertainment. Almost every local band you can think of will be hitting the stage. That's again from Wednesday till Saturday.
Front Row Center is brought to you by Teleco. We hear you at Teleco, your T-Baytel authorized dealer, 601 Central Avenue.
Well, Courtney, you're always doing crunches during the commercial breaks, aren't you?
Every
always,
single
always.
cast.
You should see her. I don't think that even you could do what we're going to show you next after the break. Stay with us. You won't want to miss it.
Okay, fitness enthusiasts, get ready for a gut buster of a challenge. Now, how long can you stay in this position? 30 seconds, 1 minute? How about 2? Well, this teen can hold the ultra-tough plank position for 1 hour and 20 minutes. If that sounds like a world record, that's because it is. But 16-year-old Gabby Uri didn't just do it for the bragging rights. She also raised more than $20,000 for a kid's hospital.
Randy, imagine how much you could raise.
You know,
I think you could do that.
You'll find this hard to believe, but I sleep like that.
Oh, I was going to say, I think you could do this on the desk here, and you would still be there when we shot our Saturday news.
Just on the late edition. Gotta wait till Barry leaves.
We're recapping our top story. Snow, more snow. It's even being blamed for some bad news at City Hall, budget overruns and deficits. I don't believe you. I don't believe you at all.
And of course, Stanley Cup playoff action. We've got Chicago and St. Louis coming up in about an hour's time. You don't want to miss it. That series tied at 2.
And if you're tired of the snow, yes, so are we. And the good news is it is ending. It looks like it's going to be fairly dry this weekend, but a little on the cool side. High of 3 tomorrow and 6 on Sunday.
Well, that about wraps it up for us tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.